That's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Engage. So, I'm not in my suit as usually am. I'm wearing this. It's a bit chilly, and I didn't feel like putting on the outfit right now because it didn't keep me as warm. But I'm not gonna do what I did with the first two seasons. I'm gonna leave that for if you want super in-depth reviews of each and every single episode. Again, I'll leave a link in the description to the playlist where Lore Runner, amazing YouTuber, goes through every episode in detail throughout the seasons. I'm going to talk about Season 3. You know, when people talk about Enterprise, this is usually when they say it gets good. Well, having gone through all of it, I'm going to say the first half, that's hit or miss. That is very, very hit or miss. You have some really decent episodes, and then you have some... The first episode, where we get introduced to the Anzati, this new alien, I guess not just race, but, you know, I guess race. It's the people of the Xindi, but there's 5 different species that are a part of that whole thing. And so the season-long arc, of course, is going to stop the Xindi from killing humans, because the Xindi were told by some mysterious race that in the future, humanity was going to kill them. So they decided to do a preemptive strike, something, you know, Chiss from Star Wars would be very, very upset about, especially so far in the past. The first episode, the first half of this series is very hit or miss because there's a lot of filler. Now, sometimes the filler is really good, and sometimes it's not. One of the filler that has stand out to me is I forget the episode title, I apologize. It was the episode where Tucker gets a clone, basically. It is a phenomenal episode, I think, in my opinion, one of the highlights of the season, and really opens up Tpol and everything, and Tucker into what their relationship will become in Season 4. So it was really great to see that. And there's other episodes to start showing Archer falling more into darkness, doing more of whatever means necessary sort of approach. Now, whether that lands with you is either hit or miss will depend on you as an individual. I thought it was okay. I'm not as harsh, or I guess not harsh is the right word, I'm not as critical as maybe Lore Runner is, but it wasn't the best thing ever, but it wasn't the worst thing ever either, in my opinion. A lot of these episodes by Lore Runner, for instance, I know I keep referencing this YouTuber, but some of them got Lamentations, which were like really, really bad episode status by him. I never felt like anything really was deserving of that, just not as great episodes. But when the show really picks up its stride is when it finally decides to stick to its original, you know, arc. So basically, when we get to Anzati Prime, and every episode following, it is banger after banger after banger, in my opinion, and the pace doesn't stop. The only time where it's slightly less than really good is the episode E2, where a future Enterprise, but the same exact Enterprise, comes and interacts with the Enterprise because they went through this wormhole thing, and it's the descendants of the crew. That, I mean, depending on your theory of time travel, just cease to exist by the end of that episode. But it was really interesting to see a possible adult child of Tucker and Tpol. It was also just great to kind of just hammer that point in to kind of make that, you know, B-plot more of a thing that will be a thing in Season 4, where the whole idea, you got old Tpol and trying to help younger Tpol and telling her how Trip can help you, you know? So really, it's just, there's a non-stop momentum the further you get in. You know, Anzati Prime to the end, to 0 Hour, it's all banger after banger after banger after banger. I think it's all really solid stuff, really good Trek, and I love it to death. It is the reason people talk about this season. It's the reason people even care about Enterprise at all, and Season 4 really got the ball rolling on that. There was some good stuff in season 1 and 2, but this, once they got past the Drek, which was the first half of season 3, once we got to Anzati Prime onwards, it was non-stop, here we go, let's go, really good. And it never, to me, never stopped the momentum. I do have a problem, I guess, with the first half more so, but that's really it. Like, I just think the first half was a whole bunch of diddle-daddling to get to the main point, because the season really only needed to be like a miniseries. It really, what it should have been is like Doctor Who, or not Doctor Who, sorry, Torchwood, which is a spin-off of Doctor Who, which season 1 and 2 were a normal set of episodes, but season 3 was only 5 episodes long. Now, I'm not saying that the Star Trek season needed to only be 5 episodes long. Maybe, like, how HBO does a lot of series, like House of the Dragon, where you have 8 episodes. Because I really feel the story, or maybe 10 at the most. Like, it didn't need 24, however many episodes they got this season. They didn't need it, So, there are some misses in this season, but overall, I think if we're counting the overall story arc as a whole and counting the biggest, in plot points, it's a really good season. Another good episode is when Degra gets tricked. They try to convince him that he's a friend of the humans because they put like this forget drug in him or whatever. I'm not gonna get too much into it. Again, watch Lore Runner's video if you care that much about it. But that was a really solid episode. But one of the few Trek episodes that have legitimately managed to make me cry was, what is the title of it? I forget what the title is. But it was the second episode after Anzati Prime, I think. But it really doesn't matter. You'll know when you see it. But Tucker's trying to fix this because the Enterprise has been hurt. And Tpol shows up. But she brings this stuff that the Xindi are trying to give to help repair it. And he kicks it because the whole episode he's supposed to be writing this letter for one of the crew members that died because she was in engineering and he's the chief engineer. But the whole time he's trying to write this letter, he's not really thinking about the crew member. He's thinking about his sister, and I'm getting teary-eyed just talking about it. But it's one of the most well-acted scenes in all of Trek, in my opinion. So he just opens up. He just lets his heart out. Because he's been kind of wholly in for 9 months. He's been trying to kind of compartmentalize. That's the word I couldn't say in my Dark Journey New Jedi Order review. I finally did it. But he talks about how he tried to just make his sister be another number. A list added to the 7 million. But it's his sister. And he starts crying. And to Paul, who's a Vulcan, she rests her hand on his shoulder. And just the chemistry between these two. And the fact that, he just grabs tightly her arm. And then she says, I envy you Vulcans. And then she replies, we control our emotions because we can become volatile if we don't. It's you humans who are to be envied. Because you can have those emotions and still be stable, basically. It's those are the scenes I live for, man. Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever. It's those character moments. It's the things that hit your heart. And I won't lie to you, I was bawling like a baby. It was so good. It was so good. It was such a phenomenal piece of television. It was such a good little... And even if I just leave... Even if you just watch that scene out of context without having watched the entire show, it still works. Because it's just well acted. So that was really great. And everything with this indie comes to the head, and the spear builders, which is another interesting thing because I don't think the show's ever touched this. I don't know if there's any non-canon book that addresses this, but the spear builders, they look rather similar to the one species that possibly created everything, or created all the species in that one Star Trek The Next Generation episode. And then you also have the whole changeling things, the founders, because in Deep Space Nine, you have those guys. And the weird thing is that they all look sort of similar. I'm not saying that they are the same thing, but it'd be really cool if somebody did like a New Jedi Order, or like a Star Wars Expanded Universe Death Star. Death Star being a novel which basically explained any like weird thing like this person created this person created this. Let's make it all make sense in one book about how the Death Star was created. With the simplest explanation of that, but what if there's some sort of connection between all three of those species? Because they do look rather similar, and I think it's really interesting to think about that. But yeah, Degra became one of my favorites this season. He was the mad scientist who made the Death Star, basically. But he turned out to be one of the most caring people on there, you know. I did what I did to protect my children, and I would do it again. But I can't help but wonder, as those 7 million people burned on Earth, how many of them were children? Again, just, you know, not everything's black and white. The only ones that end up being kind of black and white are the reptiles, Indy. They're just kind of bad. Even the insectoids are like, bro, you gotta stop this, and they don't. Daniels does show up a few times, the future guy. Not the future guy, but one of the future guys from season 1 and 2 that kept interacting with Arthur, which clearly means that this is an altered timeline at this point. What would the original show of Star Trek be, Star Trek Enterprise, I mean, without all this time travel interference? I don't know. But probably a lot more boring, I guess. Not as exciting to watch. But, what am I trying to say here? But he does at one point try to stop him from doing what he's doing, Daniel to Archer, by sending him to the future. 7 years in the future, to be exact. Where he's seeing himself founding, or helping found, the Federation. The Federation that we know from TOS, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. The Federation that we know of, all starting at that point. And we'll get into that, you know, because as I finish season 4, when we get to that, I will go through the non-canon novels that take place after season 4. However, seeing as how Star Trek canon gets changed like that all the time, and the fact that, well, season 5 of Enterprise is never happening. This show came out when I was born, so it's not going to happen unless they made an animated series, but I doubt it. So if you want a continuation after season 4, the only thing you're going to have is those novels. So that's what I'll be exploring after I finish season 4. But overall, I don't want to keep this too long. I thought about doing episode by episode, but it's just not my style. I just don't know how to do that, right? I'm not a television reviewer. I'm a book reviewer. So it's much easier to talk about it as a whole. Though I did want to mention some of the standouts of the season for me. But Archer and Tpol and Tucker continue to be my absolute favorite part of the show, along with Shran. Shran makes his appearance in this season twice. He helps out in the final episode, and he's around in one episode where he has to go against Archer by capturing the prototype weapon for his government, but you can tell he doesn't want to do it. And Jeffrey Combs is just one of the most phenomenal actors to have ever graced Star Trek, because he does such a good job with Shran. It's quite different from Wayun. Well, also you're like, well, that's you, Jeffrey Combs. I know you're the same guy, but he is such a way with acting where it's just an absolute thrill to watch him every time he's on screen. And I do think the writing supports his character in both this, in Deep Space Nine as well. But he really helps sell that. So props to Jeffrey Combs, and I'm excited to see him in season 4. I was surprised to know, if you watch any of Lore Runner's videos, that potentially if there's a season 5, he was going to become a series regular, which would have been awesome, but that never came to fruition. But we'll see what the books have to offer in terms of that. But anyway, that's pretty much it. The Xindi arc, once it actually kind of got the ball rolling, as I said, the first half was kind of diddle-daddling to the point, kind of meandering to get to that point. So sometimes you have really good, solid episodes. Other times you have a lot of filler, because this arc didn't need to be 24 episodes long. But there are some solid episodes in there, some solid character pieces in there. The Makos are a whole group, this military group, because I guess there's a difference that accompanies the Enterprise. And They don't get too much screen time, but the main leader and Reed kind of have this whole story going on, and it was nice because Reed didn't get to do too much in season 1 and 2, and he still doesn't get that much to do in season 3 and 4. But there was a bit more there for him in season 3 with that character, and I think it made things a lot better for him. And Hoshi's still just kind of there. I feel so bad for the actress because there's still a lot you can do with her. They kind of do something with her in this season, but it's not much. But it was nice to at least let her have some relevancy. And I continue to like Archer. He's this imperfect captain. And before that wasn't really the case. Before it was obviously behind the scenes was no, Archer's always right. But they kind of made a course correction here where it's no, he's in over his head. He's not a good captain. But that's not an insult. Because that's kind of what makes him an interesting character. I don't hate him like Lore Runner seems to for some reason, or just has this inherent distaste for him. I think I don't think you should have had a better first captain. I think you want a captain like him that would make all these mistakes. It's the first time through. You know, every captain after can learn from his example and learn from his mistakes. And here on out, he becomes a better captain throughout the stuff he has to do throughout this entire season. And by season 4, I think he legitimately just is a good captain for the most part. We'll see based on memory whenever you watch it. But Archer was great, Tpol was great, Trip was great, Phlox continues to be great. There was one episode dedicated to him that was kind of boring and didn't really add anything, but still, Phlox always makes it enjoyable to view because the actor does such a phenomenal job with that. But overall, Season 3 was a massive step up in quality for me once we actually got into the main arc and Zadi Prime onwards. Became a phenomenal piece of television for me. So it is a mixed bag, but overall, I think this is a solid step in the right direction, and I think Season 4 further solidifies that, and we'll talk about that next time. So until then, guys, what should I say? I don't know. There's so many possibilities, so many phrases, but I think for this one I'll stick with the good old, as the holidays are coming around. Who knows if this is even come out before Christmas? We'll see, but live long and prosper. Till next time. Bye-bye.